The vanilla buttercream frosting trembled in my hands as I piped "Happy Birthday, Annabelle" onto the cake. 9 perfect roses, one for each year of my daughter's life. Everything had to be perfect today, even if I was running on 3 hours of sleep and enough coffee to fuel a small army. My name is Heidi, and I've spent the last 4 years making sure my daughter never feels the void her father left when he walked out on us. Today would test that resolve more than ever. "Mum, is Daddy really coming?" Annabelle's voice carried from the living room, where she was arranging party favours in rainbow order. "Yes, sweetie, he promised." I steadied my hand on the last rose, refusing to let my anxiety ruin the decorations. The doorbell chimed and I heard Nancy's familiar voice greeting Annabelle. "There's my birthday girl." Nancy swept into the kitchen, her arms full of gift bags. "Heidi, honey, you look like you're about to snap that piping bag in half. Is it that obvious?" I forced my shoulders to relax. "Only to someone who's known you since college." She set down the bags and grabbed my hands. "Listen, if Kian acts up today, I'll personally throw him face first into that beautiful cake." I managed to laugh. "Don't tempt me, I spent 6 hours on this thing." The doorbell started ringing more frequently as parents dropped off their kids. Soon the house filled with the chaos of 9-year-olds playing party games. I kept glancing at the clock, knowing Kian would make his entrance at the last possible moment. He always did. When he finally arrived 2 hours late, my heart stopped. Because he wasn't alone. "Daddy!" Annabelle rushed to the door but froze mid-step when she saw the woman beside him. Delilah, his former assistant, stood there in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. "Princess!" Kian scooped up our daughter, but his eyes locked onto mine over her shoulder. "I hope you don't mind, but I brought someone special. This is Delilah, and well..." He paused for dramatic effect, something he knew I always hated. "She's your new stepmom." The room went silent. Even the kids seemed to sense the tension, their game of musical chairs forgotten. Nancy appeared at my side, her hand squeezing my arm in silent support. "When?" The word came out stronger than I felt. "Last weekend in Vegas." Delilah's voice was honey-sweet as she showed off a ring that could probably pay for Annabelle's college tuition. "We wanted to surprise everyone." Annabelle wiggled out of Kian's arms, her face scrunched in confusion. "But Daddy, you said you were sick last weekend. That's why you couldn't come to my recital." I watched Kian's smile falter for a split second. "Princess, sometimes grown-ups have to make hard choices, but I'm here now and I brought you the biggest present ever." "Actually," Nancy stepped forward, her voice carrying across the room, "we were just about to do cake. Kids, who wants to sing happy birthday?" The children's excitement returned instantly, and they scrambled toward the dining room. As I carried out the cake, my hands steady despite the storm inside me, I caught Kian watching me. That same smug look he'd worn 4 years ago when he'd announced he was leaving, confident that his charm and money would shield him from any consequences. But this time was different. This time, I had something he didn't know about. "Make a wish, sweetheart," I said as Annabelle beamed at her candles. She closed her eyes tight, and in that moment I made a wish too. Not for revenge, exactly, but for justice. For all the recitals missed, the weekend visits cancelled, the tears I'd dried in the middle of the night. "Mrs. Nelson?" A deep voice caught my attention. Robert, Kian's boss, stood nearby with his daughter. I hadn't even noticed him arrive. "Beautiful party. I hear Kian's up for that VP position next month." "Is he now?" I smiled, thinking of the folder hidden in my desk drawer upstairs, the one containing every broken promise, every lie, every document that proved exactly who Kian MacDonald really was. As my daughter blew out her candles to a chorus of cheers, I watched Kian pull Delilah close, whispering something in her ear that made her giggle. They looked perfect together, just like he'd planned. But plans can change. And, sometimes, karma needs a little push in the right direction. "Mom?" Annabelle tugged at my sleeve. "Can we open presents now?" "Of course, baby." I smoothed her hair, already plotting my next move. Let's make this a birthday no one will forget. After the cake, I escaped to the kitchen under the pretense of getting more paper plates. Nancy followed, closing the door behind her. Okay, spill it. You've got that look, she said, leaning against the counter. What look? The same look you had before you exposed that corrupt professor in college. You're planning something. I pulled open a drawer, pretending to search for plates I didn't need. He got married, Nancy. In Vegas, while he was supposed to be at his daughter's dance recital. I know, honey, he's trash. Nancy lowered her voice as children's laughter filtered through the door. But whatever you're thinking about doing, did you see Robert out there? I interrupted, closing the drawer with more force than necessary. Kian's boss? The one who's about to promote him to VP? Heidi. Nancy's tone carried a warning. You know what the worst part is? My hand shook as I gripped the counter. Last month, when I asked Kian for help with Annabelle's medical bills, he claimed he was broke. Broke. But he could afford that rock on Delilah's finger. A soft knock interrupted us. Annabelle peeked in, her party crown slightly askew. Mum? Daddy wants to make a speech. Of course he does, I muttered, but plastered on a smile. We'll be right there, sweetie. Back in the living room, Kian had commanded center stage, champagne flute in hand. The parents gathered around while the kids continued playing in the background. Delilah stood beside him, practically glowing as she gazed up at her new husband. I'd like to make a toast, Kian announced, flashing that $1,000,000 smile that once made my knees weak. To my beautiful daughter, Annabelle. 9 years ago, you made me a father, and today you've given me another gift, accepting Delilah into our family with such grace. I felt bile rise in my throat. Annabelle hadn't accepted anything. She'd barely had time to process the bomb they'd dropped. And to Heidi, he continued, turning toward me. Thank you for being such an understanding ex-wife. Robert chuckled, raising his glass. You're a lucky man, Kian. Not many divorced couples can be this civil. Oh, we're just getting started, I said, my voice steady despite my racing heart. Excuse me for a moment. I climbed the stairs to my home office, my fingers trailing along the wall to steady myself. The folder sat in my desk drawer, exactly where I'd left it. 4 years of documented lies, broken promises, and something much worse. Evidence of his drinking problem that he'd managed to hide from everyone at work. Don't do it. Nancy stood in the doorway. Think about Annabelle. I am thinking about Annabelle. I pulled out the folder. Every time she cries because he cancels at the last minute. Every time she asks why Daddy doesn't love her enough to show up. He's about to become VP of the company, Nancy. You know what that means? More responsibility, more travel, more broken promises. And if you destroy his career, then maybe he'll finally face consequences for once in his privileged life. I opened the folder, revealing photos of Kian passed out in his car outside bars, screenshots of texts cancelling on Annabelle, bank statements showing large withdrawals before claiming poverty. Nancy stepped closer, her eyes widening at the contents. How long have you been collecting this? Since the divorce, I knew. I knew someday he'd push too far. I closed the folder. He's not just hurting Annabelle anymore. Did you see how young Delilah is? He's already doing to her what he did to me, and she doesn't even realize it. Mom? Annabelle's voice drifted up the stairs. Where are you? We're opening presents. Coming, sweetie, I called back, then turned to Nancy. I have to do this, not just for revenge, but because it's right. Nancy studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, but whatever happens, I'm right here with you. We descended the stairs to find Kian holding court in the living room, one arm around Delilah as he regaled Robert with stories about his latest business deals. Annabelle sat cross-legged by her pile of presents, but her eyes kept drifting to her father and his new wife. I clutched the folder behind my back, my heart pounding. One move could change everything, destroy his career, hurt Annabelle. But as I watched him perform for his audience, completely ignoring his daughter on her birthday, I knew what I had to do. Kian, I said, stepping forward. Before we open presents, there's something I need to share with everyone. The folder felt heavy in my hands as I approached him, years of pain and anger condensed into manila and paper. Delilah's smile faltered as she noticed my expression, but it was Robert's curious look that gave me the final push I needed. Sometimes karma needs evidence to do its job. Actually, Kian interrupted, setting down his champagne flute, let's do presents first. Princess, want to see what Daddy got you? Kian, my voice cut through the room like ice. This can't wait. I placed the folder on the coffee table between us. The room grew quiet, save for the muffled giggles of children playing in the backyard. Thank God Nancy had the foresight to usher them outside. What's this? Robert asked, leaning forward with interest. Just some old paperwork, Kian said quickly, reaching for the folder. I placed my hand firmly on top of it. You know what's interesting about paperwork? I smiled, the kind of smile that doesn't reach your eyes. It tells stories. Like how someone can claim they're too broke to help with their daughter's medical bills while spending thousands at bars and casinos. Kian's face paled. Heidi, don't. Or how someone can miss their daughter's recital claiming to be sick when really they were in Vegas getting married. I opened the folder, pulling out a stack of photos. But my personal favourite is how someone can drive drunk multiple times, yet somehow keep it quiet at work. Robert straightened in his chair. Excuse me? She's lying. Delilah jumped in, her perfectly manicured hand gripping Kian's arm. This is just a bitter ex-wife trying to cause trouble. Pictures don't lie. I spread the photos across the table. Neither do police reports, or bank statements, or the dozens of texts cancelling on your daughter at the last minute. The room fell silent as Robert picked up one of the photos. It showed Kian slumped over his steering wheel outside the Red Door bar, dated just 3 weeks ago. Mum? Annabelle's small voice made me freeze. She stood in the doorway clutching her new stuffed unicorn. What's happening? Nothing, Princess, Kian said quickly. Your mum's just showing some boring grown-up stuff. Is that you in the pictures, Daddy? She stepped closer, peering at the scattered photos. Why are you sleeping in your car? Annabelle, honey. Nancy appeared behind her. Let's go check on your friends outside. I think Sarah's looking for you. But Annabelle stood her ground, her 9-year-old face set with determination. Is this why you didn't come to my recital? Were you sleeping in your car again? The silence that followed was deafening. Delilah's mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. Robert gathered the photos with trembling hands, his face growing darker with each one he examined. Kian. Robert's voice was dangerously quiet. My office. First thing Monday morning. Robert, please! Kian stood, desperation cracking through his polished facade. I can explain everything. These photos are old, they're... 3 weeks ago isn't old, I cut in. Neither is last weekend in Vegas. You vindictive bitch, he hissed under his breath. Daddy! Annabelle gasped. That's a bad word. I think. Nancy stepped forward, her hand on Annabelle's shoulder. It's time for cake and ice cream in the backyard. Who's with me? The remaining adults quickly followed Nancy and Annabelle outside, leaving me alone with Kian, Delilah, and Robert. The sound of children singing Happy Birthday drifted through the windows, a surreal backdrop to the tension in the room. How long? Robert demanded. How long have you been hiding this drinking problem? I don't have a problem, Kian insisted. This is all being blown out of proportion. Really? I pulled out one final piece of paper. Because according to this credit card statement, you spent over $5,000 at bars last month alone. The same month you told me you couldn't afford Annabelle's inhaler. Delilah snatched the statement, her eyes widening as she read. This is from our joint account, the one you said was for emergencies. Delilah, baby. Kian reached for her, but she stepped back. Don't baby me. We just maxed out my credit cards for our wedding because you said all your money was tied up in investments. Robert stood, gathering the folder and its contents. I've seen enough. Kian, this isn't just about the VP position anymore. We need to seriously discuss your future with the company. As Robert headed for the door, Kian's carefully constructed world crumbling around him, I felt no joy. Only a heavy, sad certainty that this had been necessary. You've ruined everything, he spat at me. No, Kian. I looked toward the backyard where Annabel was blowing out her candles again, surrounded by friends. You did that all on your own. I just showed everyone the truth. Through the window, I could see Annabel making her wish. This time, I hoped it would be for something better than a father who couldn't keep his promises. The party continued outside, but the atmosphere in my living room had turned toxic. Kian paced back and forth while Delilah sat on the couch frantically typing on her phone. "Who are you texting?" Kian snapped at her. "My sister," Delilah replied without looking up, "asking if I can stay with her for a few days." "You're not going anywhere?" He reached for her phone, but she pulled it away. "Don't." Her voice trembled. "Just don't." I moved toward the kitchen, wanting to give them space, but Kian's voice stopped me. "This isn't over, Heidi." "It should be," I said, turning back. "Go home, sober up, and figure out how to be a better father." "A better father?" He laughed, harsh and hollow. "I provide for her. I buy her things. What else does a 9-year-old need?" "Time," I said. "Attention. Love. Basic things that shouldn't need explaining." A knock at the door interrupted us. Robert had returned, his face grim. "Forgot my briefcase." He paused, looking at Kian. "The board will hear about this first thing Monday. I suggest you come prepared with an explanation." "Robert, please." Kian's voice shifted to that smooth, persuasive tone I knew too well. "We've been friends for years. You know me." "Do I?" Robert retrieved his briefcase. "Because the Kian I thought I knew wouldn't drive drunk or abandon his child. I never—" "Save it for Monday," Robert turned to me. "Thank you for bringing this to my attention, Heidi. As a father myself, I can't ignore this kind of behavior." After Robert left, Delilah stood abruptly. "I need some air." She hurried outside, still clutching her phone. "Happy now?" Kian rounded on me. "You've destroyed everything I've worked for. Everything you've worked for." I stepped closer, anger finally breaking through. "What about what I've worked for? Do you know how many extra shifts I picked up to pay for Annabelle's medical bills? How many nights I stayed up helping her with homework while you were passed out in bar parking lots?" "Mom," Annabelle's voice made us both jump. She stood in the doorway, cake frosting smeared on her cheek. "Are you and Daddy fighting?" "No, sweetie," I started, but Kian cut me off. "Yes, we are, because your mother just ruined Daddy's job." "Kian," I hissed, but the damage was done. Annabelle's lower lip trembled. "Is that true, Mom?" Before I could answer, Nancy appeared behind her. "Hey, kiddo, Tommy's about to break the piñata. You don't want to miss that, right?" "I want to know what's happening," Annabelle insisted, her voice small but determined. I knelt down to her level. Sometimes grown-ups make bad choices, and those choices have consequences. Like when I didn't do my homework and had to miss recess. Something like that. I managed a smile, but much bigger. Through the window, I saw Delilah pacing in the backyard, still on her phone. She was gesturing frantically, and even from here I could see tears on her cheeks. "Is Delilah going to be my stepmom anymore?" Annabelle asked. Kian made a choked sound. "Of course she is. Everything's fine." "Don't lie to her," I snapped. "Not anymore." "Then you explain it," he challenged. "Explain to our daughter how you just couldn't let me be happy." Nancy stepped forward. "Okay, that's enough. Annabelle, honey, let's go join your friends." "But now, sweetie." Nancy's tone left no room for argument. She led Annabelle outside, shooting me a supportive look over her shoulder. As soon as they left, Kian's phone buzzed. He checked it, his face darkening. "The board wants to meet tonight, not Monday. Tonight." He looked at me with pure hatred. "I hope you're satisfied." "I'm not," I said honestly. "I wish none of this was necessary. I wish you'd just been the father Annabelle deserves." Through the window, I watched Delilah end her call and wipe her eyes. She looked at her wedding ring, then slowly slipped it off her finger. "Your new wife is about to leave you," I said quietly. "Your job is in jeopardy. But you know what the saddest part is? You're still not thinking about how this affects Annabelle." "Don't tell me what I'm thinking," he growled, but his eyes darted to the window where Delilah was approaching, ring in hand. "You should go," I said. "Deal with your board meeting. Talk to your wife." but mostly figure out how to explain to your daughter why you keep choosing everything else over her. As Delilah entered, her mascara streaked and her hand clutching her wedding ring, I stepped out onto the back porch. The sound of children laughing mixed with the crack of the piñata breaking open, candy raining down like tiny meteors of joy. Sometimes the hardest consequences to face are the ones we bring upon ourselves. The party wound down as parents arrived to collect their sugar-buzzed children. Each time the doorbell rang, I held my breath, expecting Kian to reappear. He and Delilah had left an hour ago in separate cars, leaving Annabelle clutching her unopened present from them. "Can I open Daddy's gift now?" she asked, sitting cross-legged on the floor amid wrapping paper debris. "Of course, sweetie." I sat beside her, watching as she carefully unwrapped the large box. Inside was an iPad Pro, still in its sealed package. Annabelle's face lit up for a moment, then fell. "This is like the one he got me for Christmas." "What do you mean?" "The one he took back because he said it was too expensive." She pushed the box away. "Is he going to take this one back too?" Nancy, who'd stayed to help clean up, exchanged a look with me over Annabelle's head. "Hey, kiddo," she said. "Want to help me pack up the leftover cake?" "No." Annabelle's voice was firm. "I want someone to tell me what's really going on. Why did Daddy leave? Why was Delilah crying? Why did Mr. Robert look so angry?" I took a deep breath. "Remember when we talked about telling the truth, even when it's hard?" She nodded. "Well, Daddy hasn't been telling the truth about a lot of things. And today those untruths caught up with him. Like when I lied about eating cookies before dinner and you found the crumbs. Despite everything, I had to smile. Something like that. But bigger lies that hurt more people." The doorbell rang again. Through the window, I saw Robert's car in the driveway. "Nancy, could you—" "Come on, Annabelle," Nancy said quickly. "Let's go count your birthday money. Maybe we can find something better than an iPad to buy." As they headed upstairs, I opened the door. Robert looked exhausted, his tie loosened and jacket wrinkled. "I'm sorry to interrupt," he said, "but I thought you should know. The board meeting just ended." "Already?" I glanced at the clock. It had only been 2 hours. "It didn't take long. The evidence was compelling." He ran a hand through his grey hair. "We've suspended Kian pending a full investigation, the DUI incidents alone." He shook his head. "I never wanted to destroy his career," I said softly. "I just couldn't watch him hurt Annabelle anymore." "You did the right thing." Robert's voice was firm. "I have daughters too. If I'd known sooner—" A crash from upstairs made us both jump. "No!" Annabelle's voice carried down the stairs. "I want to talk to Daddy." I found her in my office, my phone in her hands, tears streaming down her face. Nancy stood helplessly nearby. "He won't answer," Annabelle sobbed. "I called 4 times." "Oh, baby." I pulled her into my arms, feeling her small body shake with sobs. "Is it my fault?" she whispered against my shoulder. "Did I do something wrong?" "No," I said fiercely. "None of this is your fault. Your daddy. He's dealing with some grown-up problems right now." "Problems he created himself," Nancy added, then winced when I shot her a look. Robert cleared his throat from the doorway. "Annabelle, may I say something?" She lifted her tear-stained face and nodded. "Sometimes," he said, kneeling to her level, "grown-ups make mistakes. Big ones. And when they do, they have to face consequences. But that doesn't mean they don't love their children." "Then why won't he answer?" she demanded. "Because," I said, smoothing her hair, "right now he's probably feeling very scared and angry. But that's about him, not you. Never you." My phone buzzed in Annabelle's hand. A text from Delilah. "I'm at my sister's. The ring is in his mailbox. I'm so sorry about everything." "Is that Daddy?" Annabelle asked hopefully. "No, sweetie." I took the phone gently. "But you know what? It's still your birthday. And we have leftover cake, and Nancy's here, and you haven't even opened half your presents yet." "I don't want the iPad," she said suddenly. "Can we take it back?" "Of course. And buy books instead?" I hugged her tighter, proud of her resilience, even as my heart broke for her pain. "We can buy all the books you want. Robert stood, straightening his tie. I should go. Heidi will be in touch about the investigation. After he left, Nancy brought up 3 slices of cake, and we sat on the floor of my office, eating straight from the plates like we were all 9 years old. Mom, Annabelle asked between bites, are you sure Daddy still loves me? I met Nancy's eyes over Annabelle's head, seeing my own pain reflected there. Sometimes the hardest part of parenting isn't protecting our children from others' mistakes. It's helping them understand why those mistakes happened in the first place. The doorbell rang at midnight. Nancy had gone home an hour ago, and Annabelle was finally asleep, clutching her old teddy bear instead of the new iPad. I knew who it was before I opened the door. You've got some nerve showing up here, I said, stepping onto the porch and closing the door behind me. Kian stood there, his perfect appearance from earlier now dishevelled, his eyes red. I need to see her. She's asleep and you're drunk, he swayed slightly. I lost everything today. My job, my wife, my reputation. Because of you. Because of you, I corrected. I just exposed what you did. You're the one who did it. Please, his voice cracked. Just let me explain to her. She won't answer my calls. She's 9, Kian. She shouldn't have to answer calls from her drunk father at midnight. A car slowed as it passed my house, and I recognized Delilah behind the wheel. She parked across the street but didn't get out, just sat there watching us. She left me, Kian said, following my gaze. Took all her things and left. Can you blame her? You lied to her too. He slumped against the porch railing. The board suspended me. Pending investigation. Do you know what that means? No salary, no benefits, no more expensive bars, I cut in. No more gambling with money that should have gone to your daughter's medical bills. I can change, he whispered. I'll get help. I'll do whatever it takes. Good. You should. But not for me. Not for your job. Not even for Delilah. Do it for Annabelle. The front door creaked open behind me. Annabelle stood there in her unicorn pajamas, eyes wide. Daddy! Princess! Kian straightened, trying to hide his intoxicated state. I came to say, you smell like the stuff Mom says is only for grown-ups. She wrinkled her nose. I had a bad day, sweetheart. Because of the pictures. The ones of you sleeping in your car. He flinched. Those pictures, they don't tell the whole story. Then what is the whole story? She demanded, suddenly sounding older than her 9 years. Why did you miss my recital? Why did you lie? Across the street, Delilah finally got out of her car. She walked toward us slowly, her heels clicking on the pavement. I think, she said, reaching the bottom of the porch steps, your daddy needs to get some help before he can answer those questions. Delilah, Kian turned to her, hope flashing across his face. You came back. Not for you. She looked at Annabelle. I came to say goodbye properly. You deserve that much. You're not going to be my stepmom anymore? No, sweetie, I'm sorry. Annabelle nodded slowly. That's okay. Mom says sometimes people have to leave to take care of themselves. I felt a surge of pride through my tears. When did my little girl get so wise? Kian, Delilah's voice was firm, your sister's waiting at your house. She's going to take you to that rehabilitation center we talked about. You called Rachel? He looked betrayed. Someone had to. You need help. Daddy? Annabelle's small voice cut through the tension. Are you sick? Like when I had to go to the hospital for my breathing? Kian's face crumpled. Something like that, Princess. But different. I haven't been making good choices. Will getting help make you better? So you can come to my recitals? I hope so. He reached for her, then stopped himself, looking at me for permission. I nodded slightly and he hugged our daughter, careful to keep his distance from me. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. Prove it, I said quietly. Not with words or presents or promises, with actions. Delilah touched his arm gently. Rachel's waiting. It's time. He released Annabelle, stepping back. Will you let me call her when I'm better? That depends on you, I said. Show us you're serious about getting help. Show her you can be the father she deserves. As Delilah led him to her car, Annabelle slipped her hand into mine. Mom, Is Daddy going to the hospital? Something like that. A special place where they help people make better choices. We watched the car drive away, Annabelle's hand warm in mine. After a moment, she looked up at me. Can we take the iPad back tomorrow? Of course, why? I want to donate the money to the hospital, the one that helps me breathe better. She paused. Maybe they can help other kids while Daddy gets better too. I pulled her close, marveling at how children can sometimes teach us more about forgiveness and hope than we could ever teach them. 3 days after the party, Robert called me into his office. The corporate building loomed over me, all glass and steel, as I rode the elevator to the executive floor. Thank you for coming, he said, gesturing to a chair. We need to discuss some complications. Complications? He slid a folder across his desk. Not mine, but one bearing the company logo. Kian's lawyers have been in touch. They're claiming wrongful termination and defamation. He wasn't terminated, I said. He was suspended. They're arguing the suspension itself is damaging his reputation. Robert removed his glasses, rubbing his eyes. They want us to reinstate him immediately with full benefits and a public apology. Or what? Or they'll sue. Not just the company, but you personally. My hands clenched in my lap. He's trying to bully me into silence. Again. A knock at the door interrupted us. Delilah entered, looking professional but tired. Sorry I'm late, she said, taking the seat next to me. Traffic was horrible. You asked her to come? I turned to Robert. I asked to come, Delilah corrected, because I have something you both need to see. She pulled out her phone, scrolling through it before placing it on the desk. A video played. Kian in their kitchen, clearly drunk, ranting about the company, about me, about everyone he felt had wronged him. I recorded it the night before Annabelle's party, Delilah said quietly. I was scared. He'd been getting worse. When was this taken? Robert asked, leaning forward. Last Friday, the night before we went to Vegas. She swallowed hard. He said we had to get married right away before something happened. Before what happened? Before the audit. Robert and I both looked at him. He knew the quarterly audit was coming up. He'd been falsifying expense reports, hiding his drinking binges as client meetings. Robert's face darkened. How long? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. She pulled up more videos, more evidence. I started documenting everything after I found him passed out in his office one morning. I thought I could help him change. By marrying him? I couldn't keep the edge from my voice. By giving him an ultimatum. Get help or I'd show these to the board. She met my eyes. But then he dragged me to Vegas instead. Said everything would be fine if we just got married right away. I was stupid enough to believe him. Robert stood, pacing behind his desk. This changes everything. With this evidence, the lawsuit won't stand. There's more, Delilah said. The night of the party, after the board meeting, he didn't go to the rehabilitation center. His sister waited for hours, but he never showed up. My blood ran cold. Then where is he? At the Red Door Bar. He's been there every night since. She showed us a final photo. Kian slumped at the bar, dated just last night. He's spiraling, and I'm worried he'll do something desperate. Like sue everyone who tried to help him, I said bitterly. Like hurt himself. Or someone else. Delilah's voice cracked. He keeps talking about making things right, but his idea of right is scary. Robert picked up his phone. I'm calling our legal team. With this evidence, we can file a countersuit and— No, I interrupted. No more suits. No more legal battles. I stood up. I'm going to the Red Door. Heidi, don't! Delilah grabbed my arm. He's dangerous right now. He's Annabelle's father. And he's drowning. I pulled free. Sometimes rock bottom needs a witness. Then I'm coming with you, she said, standing. Me too, Robert added. Let me call security. No. I headed for the door. Just me and Delilah. He needs to see what he's losing, not what he's fighting. In the elevator, Delilah turned to me. Why are you doing this, after everything he's done? Because my daughter asked me this morning when Daddy was coming home from the hospital. I pressed the lobby button. I'm tired of lying to her. And if he refuses help, then at least we can tell her we tried. That's more than he's done so far. As we drove to the Red Door, I thought about the folder that started all this. How I'd thought exposing his secrets would bring justice, when really, it had just revealed how deep his problems went. Sometimes karma doesn't just deliver consequences. It delivers opportunities for change. The question was whether Kian would finally take this opportunity, or if he'd keep drowning in his own denial. The Red Doors neon sign flickered in the afternoon sun as we parked. Through the window, I could see him at the bar, exactly where Delilah's photo had shown him. "Ready?" Delilah asked. "No," I admitted. "But Annabelle deserves better than a father who hides in bars, so let's go give him one last chance to be that better person." The Red Doors' stale air hit us as we entered. Kian didn't look up when we approached, just stared into his glass like it held all the answers he'd been searching for. "You're done," I said quietly. He laughed, hollow and bitter. "Come to gloat? No, come to give you a choice." I placed my phone on the bar, showing a photo of Annabelle at her recital, the one he'd missed. "You can stay here, drink yourself into oblivion, and lose everything that matters. Or you can get up right now and come with us." "Where?" He finally looked up, his eyes bloodshot. "To another board meeting, another humiliation." "To rehab," Delilah said. "For real this time." The bartender drifted over. "Another round?" "No," I said firmly. "He's done." "You can't decide that for me," Kian snapped. "No, but Annabelle can." I played a video on my phone, Annabelle sitting on her bed, recorded this morning. "Hi, Daddy," her voice rang clear through the speaker. "Mum says you're sick, like when I can't breathe right. Remember when you took me to the hospital and said the doctors would make me better? Maybe other doctors can make you better too. I miss you." Kian's hand shook as he reached for the phone. "Turn it off. She made me promise to show you." I let the video play. "She said maybe you just needed to remember what matters." "I don't deserve her," he whispered. "No, you don't," Delilah agreed. "Not right now, but you could. The lawyers—" "Drop the lawsuit," I cut in. "Use that money for treatment instead. Show her you can be better." He stared at his glass for a long moment. "What if I fail?" "Then you fail trying to be better, instead of succeeding at being worse." The bartender returned. "Last call?" Kian pushed the glass away. "No, I'm done." Outside, Rachel's car waited in the parking lot. She stepped out, relief washing over her face when she saw her brother walking under his own power. "The center has a bed ready," she said. "They can take you now." Kian turned to me. "Will you tell her that I'm really going this time?" "I'll tell her you're fighting to get better. The rest is up to you." "I'll send you updates," Rachel promised as she helped him into the car. "Weekly reports if you want them." "No," I shook my head. "Let him earn the right to give updates himself, when he's ready." As Rachel's car pulled away, Delilah touched my arm. "Why did you really come today?" "Because revenge wasn't the answer." I watched the car disappear around the corner. "Annabelle deserves to know we tried everything before letting go." My phone buzzed. A text from Nancy. "Annabelle's asking about dinner. Everything okay?" "Want to grab pizza?" I asked Delilah. I know a 9-year-old who'd love to hear how her father's finally getting help. She smiled, tears in her eyes. "I'd like that." At home, Annabelle launched herself into my arms. "Did you find Daddy? Is he going to the hospital?" "Yes, baby, he's getting help." "Real help this time," Delilah added, setting the pizza on the counter. Nancy raised an eyebrow at Delilah's presence, but said nothing as Annabelle dragged her new almost stepmom to see her book collection. "You know this might not work," Nancy said quietly. "I know. But she needs to see we tried, that sometimes love means making hard choices. Like showing those photos. Like giving someone a chance to change, even when they've hurt you." Annabelle's laugh drifted from her room as she showed Delilah her favourite stories. Stories about redemption, about second chances, about people choosing to be better. My phone buzzed again. A message from Robert. "Board-approved medical leave for Kian. Treatment fully covered. You did the right thing." I watched Annabelle teaching Delilah her special pizza eating technique, folding it just so to catch all the toppings. Two people connected by a man who'd hurt them both, finding comfort in each other's strength. "Mom," Annabelle called, "can we read my new book? The one about the dad who learns to be brave?" "Of course, baby." As I joined them, watching my daughter snuggle between me and the woman who could have been her stepmother, I realized something important. Sometimes the biggest act of revenge isn't exposing someone's secrets or destroying their life. Sometimes it's showing them exactly what they could lose, then giving them one last chance to save it. "Read the part about being brave again," Annabelle requested, her eyes heavy with sleep. And so we did. Three people bound by love for a little girl, hoping that somewhere across town, her father was finally finding the courage to be brave too. Not for revenge, not for karma, but for the chance to be worthy of his daughter's love. That's the thing about karma. Sometimes it doesn't just deliver justice. Sometimes it delivers hope.